Hi everyone, it's me Ulysses, your host, and welcome back to Ask Our Experts. In today's video, Sieg contrasts stability versus average value and stability versus accuracy. He'll also explain how these parameters are described in a typical timing source datasheet. Sieg, can you tell us the difference between stable and accurate clocks?
So to discuss the difference between stability and accuracy, I'm going to go back to using that 8 a.m. daily train departure example to make things a little more clear. But first, we need to understand the difference between an average departure time, an average event time, versus a stable event. So in the previous video, we talked about a train which had varying levels of stability because its departure time window could have been plus or minus 20 minutes or 1 minute or 1 hour, but the average for all of those cases, all three of those trains, could have still been exactly 8 a.m. So the average is the same, but the stability is different for all of those cases. Now, similarly, if we have a highly stable clock, that does not mean that we have a highly accurate clock necessarily. Just like a highly stable clock doesn't mean that it's perfectly average and vice versa. Again, going to our train example, let's say that we measure this 8 a.m. train for a period of 10 years every day. And every day, this train leaves at exactly 8:45 a.m. That train is very stable. It has a very small maximum time interval error over a long period. However, it's horrible in terms of accuracy because it's always 45 minutes late. I wouldn't want to take that kind of train. So now let's go back to talking about this in terms of a clock rising edge and how stable a clock is. Let's say, for example, I get this super stable clock source. I mean, this is a 20 megahertz clock that has a range of plus or minus 0.1 parts per million for its maximum error over a period of 10 years. So I grab this clock off the shelf, I plug this clock, it's labeled 20 megahertz, I put it into my system, and the system is a complete failure. Well, I start debugging and I see, this clock, it's running at 24 megahertz. Now I measure it, and it's a very stable 24 megahertz. It's 24 megahertz within plus or minus 0.1 ppm, but its accuracy, of course, is horrible, and it'll probably crash the system. Obviously, a condition we don't want. So now let's talk about this in terms of how data sheets for oscillators or clock sources take all these parameters and wrap them up for you. Data sheets will describe timing sources in various ways. So sometimes you will see an oscillator in a data sheet described at a nominal frequency, but then it will say it has an initial accuracy. So let's say I have this 20 megahertz oscillator, I plug it into my system, the data sheet is guaranteeing that it will have an initial accuracy within a certain range. Let's say that range is plus or minus 5 parts per million. Now, there is also stability that we need to take into account here because of temperature changes, voltage changes, humidity, aging, and so forth. And let's say that the stability of this oscillator over 10 years is specified to be within 4 parts per million. So in the worst case, this 20 megahertz oscillator that I plug into a socket, over its 10-year lifetime, can be up to 9 parts per million off from 20 megahertz because of that 5 initial accuracy offset worst case plus the worst case stability, which is 4 ppm. So we see it may be easier just to combine all of these in a data sheet, and that's what a lot of data sheets do these days. Many data sheets will specify the nominal frequency, and then they'll say that over the life of the oscillator, 10 years or whatever, this frequency will remain within a certain plus or minus ppm of the nominal frequency. So typically, a crystal oscillator, for example, you may see this range of plus or minus 25 ppm or plus or minus 50 parts per million. So now you should have a better idea of how to look at the data sheet, see the parameters, and determine if those parameters are acceptable in your system.
Thanks, Sieg, for clarifying the differences between stable and accurate clocks. To learn more about clocks and timing, feel free to click on the link in the description below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to be the first to know when we have more insights from our experts. See you soon.